Hey guys, my name is Stephen Tamman, and today I'm going to be going through the review and the retro for the second sprint that I am doing according to the Agile task management process that I've set up for myself to organize work in my personal life. So at the beginning of this sprint, I had the sprint planning video going over the things I planned. And as you can see by the burn down over here on the right, well, I didn't really burn anything down. In fact, I added to stuff the first day of the sprint and then really didn't mark any stuff as done. Now I did get some of the video stuff done as per normal here, but I really didn't make very much progress on any of the website stuff, just like the sprint before. And that last sprint review and retro video, I did discuss some how this isn't the end of the world. This is supposed to help me organize my work and stuff. So I'm still not too torn up about it. I mean, of course, I do want to finish the website at some point and get to all of that, but I've been doing some other stuff in the meantime, which we'll go about first, right, in the sprint review section. So in terms of stuff I did get done here, well, the videos, as I said, did get done. So these week 60 things here, these are actually from this next sprint, the one that started yesterday. But the things that I did get done here are from this 58.1 all the way through this 59.2. So all of this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 videos, I guess. And so all of these were from this sprint cycle. And of course, this is normal here. You'll notice actually that I didn't do a second lesson video for my own teaching series this week. And that's because I got really bottlenecked. We'll get to this in the retro portion of this. I got really bottlenecked on the study I'm going through because the section that I'm organizing things from is super duper long. Well, we'll get to that in a second. But anyway, this is mostly what I spent time working on in terms of output this week. So all the videos, and this will be normal as we keep going through sprint to sprint. This is going to be a continuing time drain for me, but there you go. So that's maybe not as impressive as last sprint when I had, all these pages I could show about, what I spent my time on, even though it wasn't what I planned. Well, for here, it really was the videos, and I have a lot of like meta thought, discussion in my head on how I want to be organizing stuff for the videos. But not so much of that ended up in like a page or a web page I published to a website or anything. Well, that's the review. That's what I did, the videos, and lots of other stuff, as we'll see in a second. So in terms of the retro, what went well and what didn't go so well? Well, this isn't so much something that's unique to this sprint, but I was going back and just watching some of these videos from the last couple weeks, ever since I started organizing things a lot more and time stamping them and coming up with content outlines. So, maybe a good 20 videos now almost. So I was going back and just looking at some stuff, and I'm actually legitimately happy with how things are turning out. This is actually not super common for me because I'm a huge perfectionist, and most of the time when I go and I look at past things I've done, I'm usually kind of unhappy with it, but I think things are actually going pretty well here. So that isn't this sprint specifically, but as I settle more and more into the workflow relating to this, I think that how I've decided to set things up is actually working pretty well. So I'm happy with the videos, I guess. Now, as to what didn't go well, you saw that burn down, right? Like I definitely didn't do the work in terms of what I had planned and scheduled. I mean, just like last sprint, that isn't anything new here. On this sprint, I was probably actually even worse, in that I didn't even get all the videos I had planned done because of this bottlenecking thing that I mentioned, which we'll talk about more. But at any rate, I didn't really stick, see all these tasks here relating to the open source theme I'm making and all of the cross-linking to the ministry website I have in progress, to that documentation and all that we've talked about before. Well, still haven't gotten to that yet. But just as last time, I have excuses. And in fact, I have lots and lots of excuses, as we'll see here. So first one, I actually worked overtime again. This time, substantially more, almost 4.5 hours, the first Saturday in the sprint. Now, this actually impacts my capacity to do work quite a bit because Saturday mornings are one of the only times in the week that I don't have other stuff. So I have a fair number of scheduled obligations. Our Bible studies run for hours and hours Saturday afternoons, and then usually talk to my family Saturday evenings and stuff like that. So, many other times in the week, I have other obligations, which means that having this time Saturday morning eaten up actually did put me pretty behind. I mean, of course, I'm going to get paid for it, so that's nice. But that's one reason why not so much got done here. I also worked out more. I mean, of course, I've had somewhat of a consistent schedule here, but I got an easy curl bar for doing bicep curls, tricep extensions. Like I have it in my room, actually, right next to me, and that is just because it is going to incentivize me to do these things more. So I've been weightlifting more. Second wrist guard came here. I have these fancy wrist guards that allow for some motion and full grip. So I've been mountain biking a lot more, although it's been raining a lot. As much as I can, maybe 3 or 4 times over the last couple of weeks, riding on the trail for, an hour maybe. And it's a little bit of a drive from where I live currently. Once I move into the house that I have under contract, I'll actually be very close to it. So only about 10 minutes away. And it's kind of on the way home from work for me. So anyway, spent more time mountain biking too. It's more exercise time. And then was also walking around a lot this last couple of weeks. Whenever I'm talking to people, so both on the phone and in person, I like to walk when I do it. It's a good way to multitask. It gets you some extra exercise, but for various reasons, I was talking to others quite a bit here. And so I was out walking a lot. I mean, it's good. More exercise means, I sleep better and I, losing some weight and all that great stuff. But, that's more time. And I also had, just as last time, quite a bit of unplanned work that I ended up doing. So like I said, not so much stuff that I can pull up a page and show you here, look, this is what I did. But I have some drafts in progress. One thing it's kind of interesting, I learned about this in psychology, my psychology class in high school, was that there's some psychology behind how we dress. So dressing sharp, wearing nice clothes, wearing that suit can make you feel powerful and all that. So of course, I'm not going to go around wearing a suit all the time, but I did do some research here, on some of the science behind this and exactly what I kind of think is a good balance to strike moving forward. I looked at some questions relating to the mountain bike that I've been looking into. So I do have one right now. Now my bike doesn't actually have suspension on it, which, I mean, I'm going on mountain biking trails, but I mean, it has big tires, which help soak up some of the impact, but I always kind of knew ever since I started mountain biking with this that, oh, you know what, I really need a bike that has suspension. So, I mean, I've been, researching bicycles has been a hobby of mine for a long time. But, I was looking at the bike that I'm very interested in. It's made by a cool German company called Nicolai. They work with Air Force precision aluminum here. I mean, like I said, I've done a lot of research, but I was coming up with some questions here. So there's a distributor here in the US called Cycle Monkey. They do a lot of stuff with like internally geared hubs, so IGHs, like the roll-off that's on this bike. But they have an interesting description here, 2020, on a bike build from Nicolai, this bike that I'm looking at for one of a different customer of theirs. And they were talking about how it's kind of hard to demo it because Nicolai's they're a European brand, out of Germany. And so if you want to test ride in Europe, it's easier. But some of the questions relating to this were, can I spec my own parts on this? So I have my own seat post I'm interested in. That's a dropper post and suspension seat post combined, and some tire inserts, some specific tires, and what else? Oh, different handlebars that have polymer suspension, or maybe not polymer, elastomer, like rubber shocks basically in the handlebars, and then also suspended grips and all this other cool stuff that I've done research on. Well, can I spec that into my build if I order from this distributor? So that's one question, as well as there's another company from France called Mustache. They make electric mountain bikes too, and they've tweaked the firmware on the Bosch motor, which is the electric motor here. So there's a mode on the Bosch like CX motor, which is the one designed for mountain biking, called e-mountain bike, which is kind of dynamic. So you see, as you expend more effort, like you're going up a hill, it actually gives you more juice. And so that has some advantages over the linear modes here in terms of performance on the trail. And at any rate, this French company has like tweaked this mode. So e-mountain bike mode is good, but it gives you an awful lot of assistance. And if I don't want to go quite so fast on the trail, or I'd rather get more of a workout, it's kind of nice to have that thing that splits the difference. But I want to see if I can get it put on the mountain bike that I buy from this company, from this distributor, using this firmware. And I'm not quite sure if that's possible. We'll see. I'm crossing my fingers because I think it's a really cool. I think it's a really cool idea. It's a cool algorithm. The sampling that they do to allow you to blend assistance levels based on the terrain that you go at. But I had a bunch of questions. I was organizing things. That took me a while, several hours at least. And, I have just enormous amounts of research that I've done on bikes. It's been, like I said, a hobby of mine for a long time. So that was one thing here. I know I just spent a bunch of time on that, but I did do that the last couple of weeks. I was also looking more into GoPros. I've been, I think I mentioned that last time, I'd been doing some research on how to shoot point of view footage with it, using a helmet mount. Well, one of the things is that I record most of my stuff with Zoom. So part of that is that I have, these webinar sort of things for the Bible study, and I can record these meetings of multiple people. Well, that's why recording with Zoom is good for standardization and consistency. But I also share my screen a lot. And so I wanted to know if I could use a GoPro as a webcam, because that way I'd be able to alternate point of view footage with screen sharing for these slide presentations like what I'm doing right now. And that will let me do very effective product reviews. Among other things, I want to be able to, have the point of view footage for when I'm talking about something or pointing at something, but I also want to be able to switch back into sharing my screen to go over some points in the presentation like this. GoPro has a site, I guess you download some software and then you can actually use it as a webcam through Zoom or other applications like Skype. So I was looking into that, doing some research there. And so that's even just, this was like the low level stuff. This was the stuff that didn't take time. One of the drafts that I was working on for my personal site eventually, I have no idea when this will actually go up, but what I was working on was this idea of moderation in all things. So, that's a good life principle to live by, but kind of thinking on the sustainability of diet and exercise and these other things in life based on maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. So the unpleasantness of these things. And all of that alongside with other considerations in terms of efficiency and optimization. So like in terms of diet, you want something that has the lowest net calories for, making you feel the most full, right? And for exercise, you want the most bang for your buck in the time you spend and things like that. So general efficiency considerations alongside this idea of getting the most bang for your buck in terms of what you have to spend, willpower wise or unpleasantness wise. So the basic idea here, and I wrote this up in much more depth. Again, I don't know exactly when I'm going to post it, is that the best diet for a person maybe isn't the one that might be best in an absolute sense nutritionally, because if you don't stick with the diet, it's worthless. And that the exercise plan that might be best in the hypothetical is actually likewise not ideal in practice if you find it too unpleasant to persist in it. So this, if you eat boiled broccoli and boiled chicken every day, well, you're not gonna gain weight that way, but you're also probably not going to be able to sustain it. You don't have that variety. You don't have something that tastes good that you're excited about eating. Same thing with exercise. If you push yourself too hard, do 3 sessions of high intensity interval training a week and lift weight above what you really should be lifting and stuff like that, you're going to burn out. You're not going to stick with it. And so what might actually be best hypothetically won't actually be best in practice. And this is something where I'm kind of actually shifting my thoughts, because I thought, oh, well, I just need to kind of man up and, conform myself to these things. But it's been hard forcing myself to do some of this. And I really do want to get in better shape. I have been actually in a lot better shape than I was in college. Now that I have more time and I'm sleeping more and have more time for exercise, but I want to find something that I can stick with that I don't feel like is draining me all the time. So that was the initial impetus behind this. It's not just nutrition and exercise, though. Maybe skim over this a little faster. In terms of my job, I worked on an Air Force base, working for the Department of Defense. And so I have pretty good work-life balance. There is some stress from my job, but it's not crazy. But especially relative to software engineering in the corporate world, like Silicon Valley, California sort of thing. Well, I don't work 60-hour weeks. I don't have crazy amounts of stress. So this is kind of the idea that, well, in the same way that maybe it'd be hypothetically better, maybe it's a better match for my capabilities and my interests and stuff. Well, if it causes me to burn out, well, then that's not worth it, right? Or I have, less time to do the things I actually want to do. And same deal with getting less sleep, right? If you work more, so you sleep less, you have more time to work. But if you end up getting sick or you even compromise your mental health because you're always sleep deprived, well, that's definitely not worth it. So I have a page up on this, this idea of moderation in all things. Okay, so this was just personal site stuff that I got sidetracked on. I have even more stuff on the ministry site, so the Bible Doc side of things here. Now, the biggest time sink here was me thinking about how I want to structure all the things video-wise. So, of course, I've launched the YouTube channel, so the YouTube arm of this ministry. But before I get too much farther down the rabbit hole here, I want to make sure that I'm doing things how I want to be doing them long-term, so that I don't just blast ahead and keep on incurring more and more technical debt, things that I'm going to have to go fix later. And so you may have heard of this saying here, if you find yourself in a hole and wish to get out, the first thing to do is to stop digging, right? So I want to make sure that I start doing things right today so that I don't have a bunch of work to go back and do later. It's already bad enough, honestly. I was procrastinating a lot this week because I already have here, since I started doing things the right way, week 1 here, I think this was about when it started, so I already got like 20 videos up. And so given that I'm making decisions now that I want to go do this for all these videos, well, I have 20 videos now that I have to do stuff for. So that's why I want to do it now before I have 50 videos that I have to do stuff for, or 100 videos, right? Because then it becomes much harder to change the structure and the framework. So, right. So I want to stop digging first, right? Stop making more videos until I'm sure I have the structure and format down. That's why I was, doing this in lieu of other things, is because it's really important for me to get right now. Otherwise, I'm going to spend a lot of time playing catch up later. So the 3 big keystone tasks relating to this that I spent time on was updating the templates for the video descriptions. So deciding what I want to link to, how I'm going to format things, doing timestamps for the ministry content, not backed up by slides in a very detailed fashion, right? Basically up to the character limit for the YouTube descriptions. And the reason why I'm saying this not backed up by slides is because stuff that's my own teaching. So if I have something of my own, like one of my own Q&A videos or one of my own, well, actually not the Q&A videos, one of my own teaching videos where I have slides for literally everything I talk about, well, then I don't need to go knock myself out making summarized versions of the content and the timestamps, because someone can just look at the slides. They can download the slides and look at the slides. Like, I don't need to summarize it. But if we go off the script, so to speak, if we're talking about something that I don't have prepared, so much of the Q&A content I have prepared beforehand. But if we ever talk about something in the Q&A video that's not, where someone asks a question and I'm answering it without having something prepared beforehand, well, then I do need to summarize that, because that's not in the slides. It's not like someone can go read the written summary version of it if I don't do that. And then, of course, the discussion videos from our wider Bible study discussion, I have to do that for, because, again, the bit on the slides, and I'll actually show you here. So this is an example of one of the timestamps. I'll get to why I had this as an example in a second. But
all right, so the next thing
the timestamps here in this video, you'll see that the initial timestamp here where I say core points, I have core points and then the title of the video. Well, that's what I have on the slides from this video. And then all the other timestamps you see paragraph after paragraph here, these are all the timestamps that I didn't have slides on. So this is the only way for people to actually get the summary version of what we talked about, is if I go through and I do it manually. So I wanted to be super precise in how I did this, super thorough, so that people will actually be able to get a full summary of all the content in this video, right? This first bit, the first 11 minutes or so here, as you see, first timestamps at 1:27, second timestamps at 12:19. Well, for those 11 minutes, all of that is in the slides that they can download. I have a link to download the slides here. But the rest of it, I actually have to do in the timestamps for people to be able to get a full summary. So doing this actually takes a long time. I mean, I'm glad I'm doing it. It's good. It gives people not only the video, but then the ability to see it at a glance. I mean, or a little bit more than a glance. We got like maybe 7 or 8 paragraphs here, but get a very detailed, short. Again, YouTube descriptions are limited to 5,000 characters here, so this is not a huge amount of content. Maybe it's 5 minutes to skim through, but to be able to get that written summary of what the video is about. So I did that for a lot of stuff. I still have more to go, honestly. Did it for like 5 videos today, and I was like, oh, I'm done. Not my favorite thing ever. It's not busy work. And like I said, it's good that I'm making these summaries, but and then the last thing, and this is something I'm actually pretty hyped about, is collecting and organizing all the transcripts and the timestamps and the summaries onto a single massive page for referenceability. So people will be able to do Control F and search for stuff on this page across all of the summaries and the timestamps and the transcripts for all the videos in this series, right? So both for my own teaching series here, going through SR4 and our Bible study here, we're up to week 60 some odd here. And I don't have all of the old stuff timestamped and with transcripts, but I mean, we're still talking tens or even hundreds of videos, probably end up being the equivalent of thousands of pages on the website. But being able to search that for when did we talk about, this topic? When did we talk about that topic? That's going to be absolutely huge, very, very useful. So that's something I want to do, but I want to make sure I set it up right. So there you go. That's me on the structure of the video stuff, figuring out what I want to do now before I get even more videos that I have to go work with so that I make an ideal user experience moving forward. Some additional miscellaneous stuff. So I was emailing back and forth with a mentor about a question I had doctrinally on a verse from 1 Peter chapter 3. I was organizing content. This is what I mentioned. I said we talk about later. This is the section in SR4 that I'm going through my own teaching series here. This section here, the vanity of life. Well, this is where the section starts. And then you scroll and you scroll and you scroll and you scroll and you scroll down for like all the way till he'll like here or something. I don't know exactly where I am. I don't even know if we're out yet. Something like this, like a good sixth of the entire study or something. I mean, a little up, but I mean, an enormous amount of content. And I really need to do it up front to be able to break it down into digestible chunks. So that's what I'm trying to do, break the content down into 25, 30-minute videos so that it's easier to take in, because there aren't any other headings. There's just that section here, this section, so this is the next section there, and then you go back up and there. So, I mean, everything in between, there to there it's all one section. It's really long, maybe 30, 40 paragraphs. And so I'm trying to break all that down, but I need to do it all up front before I can actually chunk things into teaching videos. And so I got bottlenecked on this. Like I said, I started doing it and I was like, oh, wow, this is super long. And so it's going to take me a week, maybe even 2 weeks here for me to get through everything, to organize it all, to break it all into slides, groups of slides that will end up being 25 minutes long. And then I'll pick back up in that teaching, but I got stuck on this. And then I added an extra Q&A video here. You'll see here on the, I had this question and answers. That was actually from last time about monasticism. And I just decided to go ahead and do a part 2 on that topic, the Q&A, just to make sure that I tied up all the loose ends there. So that was an extra video that I hadn't accounted for. And then on top of all that, right, so all this unplanned stuff from my personal site and all this unplanned stuff from the Bible site, well, I also spent a good amount of time kind of rethinking certain aspects of this personal agile task management system that I'm doing here, the very thing that this review and retro is relating to. So I have a whole bunch of paragraphs that I wrote up about this, but I'll do a separate video on this, hopefully soon, maybe not this week, but, within the next little bit, talking more about all this. But the upshot is that I'm going to stop assigning hours and efforts to tasks just because the marginal benefit that you get from doing such. So metrics and tracking, especially like work projections, based on how much you think you can get done in planning for the future. Well, it's not really worth the marginal cost in terms of time expenditure in the context of personal organization. So what I'm doing here. Now, I think definitely more worth it in a business context, but, and this is my opinion based on the experience I've had the last few weeks here doing this. So I spent some time on this as well. So maybe not super satisfying today here. I did the videos and we looked at what didn't go so well. And I didn't do almost any of the work I had planned. Lots and lots of excuses. And now you've gotten a snapshot of what I did do the last couple of weeks, even if it wasn't what I had planned. But in the planning video for next week, when we pick up, I will be going through, well, some of this stuff will roll over, but I think I'm also going to be tasking myself less. So I'm just going to accept reality that, given that I'm not tracking time and hours now, hours and efforting stuff, I'm going to keep tracking the videos just to make sure I do all the tasks for each one of those things. But then I'm maybe only going to pull 1 or 2 things here, just respecting the fact that, until at least things stabilize a little more, I have a more set up structure. I'm going to keep finding things that I need to spend time on, plugging holes, as it were, until everything is set up. And so until that point, I think I'm going to stop being so optimistic here. And maybe just pull in a smaller subset and try to actually finish the work that I do task myself for. But we'll talk about that in the sprint planning video for next time. So stay tuned for that.